In this video, we're going to talk about how you can improve your public speaking skills. I think everybody understands that public speaking is so critical, but it's one of the things that most people are afraid of. Now, what happens if you're not a good public speaker? Silence. People won't follow you if you can't command through your message and your energy attention. So don't be like a lot of people out there that have really high quality content, but they can't deliver it in a way that makes it inviting for people to actually listen. Because if you have high quality content but nobody's listening, then you have a useless message. And the great thing about all the elements that I'm going to break down in this video is that it can transfer to anybody really speaking about any kind of topic in any sort of arena, because these skills are fundamental principles. Now, if you don't know me, my name is Sean Smith. I've been speaking and coaching for over 15 years. We made millions and millions of dollars in this industry, and my whole business started to skyrocket when I became a better speaker.
First of all, most people, in my experience, are demanding way too much of themselves. They are demanding that they get rid of all their scary feelings before they go out and do a talk. And the only way to overcome any fears that have anything to do with visibility or personal growth is in action. And so I think a lot of people just misunderstand, like if I think about doing a talk, or if I get ready to do a talk and I doubt myself, then I'm not ready to do the talk. I've done thousands of talks over 15 plus years. And to this day, I get concerned if I don't have butterflies. I get concerned if I don't feel those nerves. So anytime that we're doing something that we haven't done before, there's a high likelihood that our fears are going to come after us, right? So this is why we cannot leave it up. One of the reasons we cannot leave it up to our minds to prepare ourselves for doing anything beyond our comfort zone, but specifically speaking. What we need to do is we need to embody our speaking. We need to embody our message. So when we are doing anything new, uncomfortable, our brains are going to be the first to go. When we get into conflict, when we get into stress, the intellect does not keep us stable. The intellect is the one that's creating the stress, that's creating the fears. And too many people are putting their trust in the intellect when it'll be the first thing that leaves you when you get up in front of some kind of new space or some kind of stressful situation, right? So what we have to do is not rely on our intellect, but we want to get our message embodied. We want to get our stories embodied. We want to get what I call a story arc as it relates to speaking. And let me give you a tiny background here. So I learned most of what I'm now doing about 2 years ago when I did a one-man play for the first time. It was a 90-minute play. And to go from a person who would just take the stage and just kind of go off the cuff to, I believe there were 17 scenes in this play and 90 minutes. And I have to hit the lines, right? Because there are a lot of lines that are in the later scenes that are based on the first scenes. And so I had to learn how to embody a 90-minute one-man show where I'm playing different characters and I'm going from one scene to another. And it was massively powerful for me to learn that. It was crazy stressful at the time. But now this is something that I do with speaking. And I'm teaching some of the people, some of my clients, of how to do this as well. And I'm telling you, it is a whole different game, because what most people do is just try to memorize it, keep it in their head, and then they just try to regurgitate it and they freak themselves out. And if you can embody your speech, then you're using an entity that will actually be there when you show up, right, on stage. Here's what I've learned. Regardless of how the finished product is, you've got to become an audience member so that you can hear it in a different way. And for you to consume it as an audience member, the audio has to hit your ears. you can't just have the words hit your eyes, and you can't just have the thoughts stay inside your head. The audio needs to hit your ears, because I guarantee you there are probably things, if you're like me, I guarantee probably, that was really bold. I guarantee you, if you're like me, that there are going to be things that sound amazing in your head when you read them, but they don't sound good at all when your ears hear them. You know, and some of it is just cadence, and some of it is the words that come out of our mouth, and some words are a little bit harder to say when they're put right next to each other. There's all kinds of reasons, but the visual consumption is going to be different than the audible consumption. So you've got to listen to it. So then after I listen to it a few times, I make any like macro changes if I think things need to shift, or I'm not really editing so much at that place. I'm just looking at the whole entity of the story and the journey that I want the audience to go on, and I'm trying to listen to start to finish. And then once I feel like I have it where I want it, then I start to cut it up. This is the thing that completely changed the game in my speaking based on my one-man show. When I started to try to like memorize everything from start to finish, I was going nuts. And then what I decided to do is memorize or rehearse each scene. And now this is what I teach people with speaking. So however long your speech is, there are different scenes in it. I record each one of the scenes separately. And in this audio app that I have, Clear Record, and I'm sure you can do it with any audio that you have. If you record each scene separately, then you can isolate that one scene and then just own that one piece. So in your speech, let's say the beginning of your speech, the introduction, could be scene number 1. And let's say you have 3 bullets. Each bullet will probably be a different scene. And then maybe the closing is scene number 5. Or maybe some of the bullets, or one of the bullets might be longer. So one of the bullets might have a couple scenes in it, or maybe even 3 scenes. But the shifts from one chunk to another is really critical. And it actually helps us remember things a lot better, because in our minds now, every scene essentially kind of takes on a different shape, like literally a different shape. If you're memorizing or trying to remember like a collection, it would be easier to know you've got a circle here and a square there and a star there than just one long 8-minute thing. It's way too hard to do that. And then each scene takes on like a life of its own. And characters sometimes will show up. Even in a regular speech, there's a character, or there's a message to tell from bullet number 1 to bullet number 2 to bullet number 3. So when you isolate the scenes, you isolate the chunks, then you rehearse so that you own each individual scene. And as I'm listening to the scene over and over again, I try to catch it. I try to be able to catch it with my mouth, meaning I try to be able to word, to lip sync basically the words, because then I know that I've got the words down if I know what's coming next. But what I found is I can only do that a few times before I get irritated, because once I own the scene, once I get the scene, then I want to make it mine. So I don't want to be restricted anymore by the thing that I just read an hour ago or a day ago. And so once I get it, once I have it about 2 or 3 times, then I don't listen to the scene anymore, and then I just do it. And then I see if I have it in my body. Most of the time I won't, because it's just new, right? I think I got it, and then I go, and then I forget some piece, and then I'll go back and listen. But there's this little transition period where I'm doing it with my body. I'm just doing it without listening to anything and rehearsing. And then I might have to go back and listen to the pieces that I'm missing. And it can be a little frustrating, because I think I got it and then I don't got it. And then I imagine, oh man, what if I screw up on stage? Like the things that the mind does is crazy. But there's essentially a transition period from listening to it to now owning it. And once I start rehearsing, the key distinction, and I think this is so critical for all speakers, the key distinction is that you rehearse to become, you don't rehearse to memorize. So now what I'm doing is I'm looking at all the chunks of the story, essentially, and I can enhance little pieces. I can make little shifts in words once I have it in my body. And I've also learned that it's really critical for you to hear when you're rehearsing, for you to hear yourself say whatever it is you're going to say with a normal sounding voice. Because what a lot of people will do is they'll, I don't have any paper here, but they'll take the paper and they'll just be like whispering, right? Like, okay, then I'm just do this, and then I'm do this, and then I'm do this. That's different. That's a different resonance in your voice. It's a different feeling in your throat. That's different than actually saying it the way you would say it. So even though it might seem weird, it totally seems weird to me. I never really enjoyed this, but I now know how valuable it is to be on stage and project and imagine you've got a stage in front of you, an audience rather. Imagine that you're talking to people over there, and when will you talk to people over here? And when will you look up above the audience? And when will you look down below the audience? And when will you look on stage? All of those things are really critical, because as soon as you get into the moment, your brain is going to look at all the things that you weren't expecting and probably start freaking out. If you're like most people with the brain that works like most brains work, that's what happens. If the lights are too bright, if there's not as many people in the audience, if there's more people in the audience than you thought, if there's some kind of like echo on the microphone, there's so many reasons that your brain will go, this is not what we were preparing for. So as much as you can prepare, incorporating the audience, incorporating your body movements, the better your body will be able to retain that, so that when you show up, your body will give the talk, not just your mind. There's two more things. I just had a thought and then it went away. But this embodied piece, I'll tell you a quick story. So about almost a year ago, I did a talk outside. I'd never done a talk outside like this before. It was another spoken word piece. So I was rehearsing. And when I showed up, I was supposed to be on at like 7:20, and they called me up on stage at I think 7:03, something like that. It was almost 20 minutes earlier than when I was supposed to go. I was walking around the property rehearsing, and it was cold outside. So I had my leather jacket on, and I was walking around. There was one piece of the speech that I was really wanting to get, one piece of the poem. And then I hear my name. So what happened is there was a lady that didn't show, and she was supposed to do like the first 5 segments on the agenda. Well, they just went right to me. Since she couldn't do any of these pieces, they went right to me. So I hear my name being called, and I'm like, I got my earphones in. Like, that can't be me. And then he's like, Sean, is Sean around? And the whole audience starts looking around, and I'm probably like 40 yards away or so by the street, just rehearsing. And then I see they're actually calling me. So I take my leather jacket off, and I literally run up on the stage. And in my mind, I'm going, I'm not ready. I'm not ready because I still don't have that thing that I was just rehearsing over there. There was a reason I was over rehearsing, because I didn't have this thing. And now I'm running, and I come up on stage, and it's cold because I just took my jacket off, and I'm rushed, and I'm 20 minutes early, and my mind is spinning. And when I got in front of the mic, I had this experience where my brain was like, oh, look at those people. And what about those people? And what about those people? And my body was already like activated with some stress because I was running and urgency and stuff. And then I said the first 2 words, me too. And my body just took over. And my mind, it was really weird. It was like this surreal kind of out of body experience. My mind literally, it felt like it just kind of separated and just went, oh, I'm just going to watch this thing here. And my body just took over. It was so incredibly powerful for me to experience that, because I really got the importance of not relying on your mind. And my body told the whole thing. In fact, it told it better than I had been rehearsing for a few days. It just came out like perfect. It was amazing. So we need to have our messages embodied. The last thing I'll tell you, as I'm putting the chunks together, it's still hard for me to just try to memorize the flow of the whole thing with the words, because it's easy for me to jump from this stanza up here to this stanza down here. And so what I'm doing now, and I'm telling you, this will completely shift everything for you if you incorporate this, is now I'm moving from phrase to phrase with my body, like literally. So I know when I start, I'm going to have my hands like this, and that's when I'm going to say, imagine with me for a moment. And from there, I know what my head's going to do. And then when my head's over there, I've connected my head looking there to the next piece, the next phrase. And then the next phrase helps me remember that this is like a movie. It helps me remember the images, and it helps me remember the body movements, not just one word to the next. Helping yourself come up with little scenes, and then in this scene, connecting it to some kind of embodied movement. I promise you that will make so much difference for you in your ability to move through your content, because you're incorporating all of you. You're incorporating all of your learning styles. You're not just incorporating your memory, you're incorporating all three ways of memorization: intellectual, visual, and neurological, the physical. You're incorporating all three of them. And when they all come together, now you're setting yourself up to win.
Now, if you like this video, check out that video where I get a little more specific with 10 quick tips to increase your confidence as a speaker. You know, if you have some fear or some anxiety, some doubts about whether you can get on stage and do this work, or whether you can really motivate people or what have you, you know, you're a human being. Humans come with fears.